We're live on YouTube now. See
Thanks,
you.
We're pretty good. We get started in 1 minute. Waiting for the students to come from other classes. So how do you guys feel about the last class of the semester?
Oh, this is the last class?
Yes, we are finishing a high note.
I have that one. That's
Exactly. I'm sure that students are happy, relieved, bittersweet.
mix.
Pretty well. After the class, we still have our dinner to work on the semester. So hopefully everybody will be hungry. Is there something going on? It's just the rain.
World Cup.
All right. Some people are happy, some people probably not that much.
The tree, the most important one. I think it's still gonna stay. Like,
Oh, that is right. Yeah. This is so wet.
Color center?
I think so.
Is it tonight? Oh,
I
yeah.
was afraid of taking it. So in the area.
All right, so we'll get started and others will catch up with us. We have some students arriving. I know that World Cup is keeping you busy, but I'm glad that you're in classrooms because today's discussion is going to be even more exciting than soccer. Even though I have to say that our speaker, one of the reasons why we're talking about his background in Latin America, one of the reasons why he got so passionate about Latin America was soccer. Right? So it is definitely an element that bridges cultures and motivates people to get involved in the region. We have the founder of the Center for Brazilian Studies, Professor Emeritus Albert Fischler, was with us in our last class. Like, he always tells the story about how one of the reasons why he got involved with Brazil was because he was a soccer player in high school. Right? So I think we tend to underestimate the importance of cultural elements, and sometimes like that's what gets people involved in some issues that will be important for their professional lives. All right, so welcome students once again. This is the last class of the semester. Time flies, but at the same time, when we look back, it's quite exciting to see all the sessions that we've had. We've covered topics like the elections, we've spoken about racial issues, we talked about the Brazilian economy. So the idea for this seminar was to give you at least a glance of some key areas that are not relevant for Brazil, but also one of the things that we always emphasize is the use of Brazil as a case study to talk about region issues more broadly, and in particular talk about issues that our region faces in Latin America. And one of the things that we've covered quite often throughout the semester was like we discussed like specific topics like racial issues. We talk about politics, and it's very important for us to understand the problems in depth. At the same time, for the students here, most of them will be practitioners and working like Masato in the field. We want to understand how we can translate policy into solutions. Okay? And one of the things that we also want to do as practitioners is to use the latest tools and think about how to address development problems effectively. So today it's very important and very exciting again because we're talking about the solutions, and we're going to be talking about the future. One of the main one of the subjects that I'm most passionate about, as you probably know, is technology and innovation. And it's not a coincidence that we chose that particular topic for today, right? It's to get you stimulated, inspired, and to get you exposed to some of those approaches that are going to be part of your professional lives. And so, as one of the phrases that I like the most, that you cannot address problems in the 21st century with tools of the 20th century. And we always have to think about what's the latest. We have to understand the latest trends. We have to get familiar with the latest tools in order to be able to maximize our impact. Right? So it's with great pleasure today that we have Masato Okumura from the Inter-American Development Bank. He is a private finance operations specialist. And before I continue with the introduction, I just have to thank one of his colleagues, Marcelo Garbol, who was scheduled to come here, but faced a last-minute challenge and couldn't make it. But he was very kind to arrange for Masato to join us. And Masato, we're very glad that he was able to step in and join us from DC in such a challenging day, like with the rain outside and the weather, and facing all the constraints in order to be with you guys here. So I hope you appreciate even more the participation of our speaker. And prior to joining the IDB about 8 years ago, he was a consultant at BCG. And something that we've seen across the board with the speakers in the seminar, all of them, without exception, had experience in the public sector, in the private sector. They moved into international organizations, and they developed these non-linear careers, and they accumulate a lot of experience that end up serving them very well. And I believe that for all of you students here that are thinking about working with development, you're going to be also following similar steps. And even if you end up in the private sector initially, or end up spending time in academia, those are experiences that you're going to accumulate that will also equip you to become great practitioners. And so without further ado, I'm just going to hand over the podium to Masato. And thank you, Masato, for joining us. A great pleasure to have you here in New York.
Thank you very much, Sydney. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for accepting me. And thank you guys here for joining this session. As Sydney said, it's raining and there's World Cup, and I see Mexican shot maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry about that, but you tried. Yeah. And let's try not to talk too much about football, but I'm from Japan, so naturally I'm kind of nervous. I don't know how much you know about the situation of Japan, but we have an important match tomorrow. Not easy, but there's always a chance. So that's where we are, and I hope this 1 hour and after that, in total 2 hours, will be something valuable for you. More valuable than reviewing reflecting the football game. So let's try. And these times of you guys, the best talent of the world, is a very important asset for the world. And I have the responsibility to make the most of that time. So I will try to do my best to give you something. Hopefully you can get something after this session, maybe something, even if it's small, you can change what you're doing in the coming days or coming months or coming years. So I will try. Let's try to enjoy and have a good session. And without further ado, I will try to make my presentation, which is about IDB Lab, where I work. And I don't know how much you know about IDB Lab, but it's quite a unique instrument that exists in the international development world. So I hope it's going to be interesting. And I'll try to spend much time introducing the examples of our intervention so that you can have ideas. And I don't know how much we can be interactive, but from my side, I'd love to have this session interactive, so you can interrupt anytime you want. I don't know how, but
usually the way that we tend to have a Q&A in second part.
Okay.
But if you need clarifications on any particular point, so not questions, but just like if you have any questions about the presentation, then feel free to raise your hand. And otherwise, let's save the discussion for
great. And one excuse caveat would be I'm using Spanish every day in IDB, and my Spanish is getting better, and I have quite a good level with Spanish, I could say, but my English was much better 8 years ago. If you need any clarification, please just let me know, and I may ask the Mexican friends to translate or whatever. But please don't hesitate to raise your hand. So let's see. So IDB Lab is part of IDB Group, Inter-American Development Bank. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
I probably have to move it manually, so.
Okay, cool. Maybe I go there
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you could prepare this.
with this. With this?
No, you have to move the mouse.
Okay.
Yeah, just move, scroll down.
Okay. Cool. Perfect. So IDB group has 3 windows. The IDB is like the bigger brother or father. It's kind of World Bank. The IDB Invest is kind of IFC of the World Bank Group. And we are here, IDB Lab, laboratory of innovation of the IDB Group. That's how we introduce ourselves. And it's kind of unique institution, unique window that World Bank doesn't have. Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank do not have either. So this is something interesting. And the idea here is to benefit poor and vulnerable population. That's the mandate of the OD development institutions. And but we do it through working with the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and private sector. We are trying to introduce innovation for inclusion. That's our value proposition. And our intervention, I will explain it later more in detail, but are small. Our projects are starting from 100K, and the largest project that we have maybe several million dollars. So IDB Invest has projects of hundreds of millions of dollars. So the size is small, but at the laboratory of innovation, we want to try pilot innovative solutions or innovative business models and see if it works. And always when they have a great potential for impact. And if it works, we want to see the scale up or replication of those models. That's our value proposition. Currently, those are the priority areas. Nothing really surprising for you, very much aligned to SDGs and all those things. 5 verticals and agriculture, essential infrastructure services like energy, housing, all these things, and education, talent, employment, health, and financial inclusion. And the climate, gender diversity are the important areas. And we promote these things again, working and developing entrepreneurship ecosystems. And we are focusing recently more and more in innovative technologies to tackle the issues. And what we do, financing is the projects. And also as laboratory of innovation, knowledge and the connections are other 2 important values that we have. What we learn from those pilots, those innovative projects, we want to share with many partners or between partners. That's we want to try. And also we want to promote connections between relevant partners, which is also quite important because at the end, our interventions, our resources are limited. So the direct interventions will have some limitation. It won't solve everything. We want to scale up somehow as knowledge or as connections. So these parts are quite important as well. Having said that, it's quite a little bit busy slide, but this is about the financing, our project. And one of the uniqueness that we have is we cover like all the phases of businesses, venture businesses, meaning we start with the pre-seed and covering the late scale-up stages. Most likely you're familiar with Series A, Series B, or pre-seed funding of these things, but we have instrument to cover all the phases depending on the solution, type of solution, and type of the company and stage of the company. The first, the red one is prototype. When a company, a startup, has some seed ideas, but not yet completely developed, we can support the initial funding, initial development of the prototype. And after that, we call it Spark, but we have instrument to support the scale-up phase as well. And likewise, we cover all the stages until actually the business will be scaled up. And also the first one, yellow one, is, as I said, we work with the ecosystem as well. What does it mean? Not only working with each company or each solution, we believe that it is necessary for us to promote the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the region. So sometimes we work with accelerators, we work with venture capitals, we work with company builders, so that there's a system, there's an system to promote, facilitate the growth and creation of interesting solutions and interesting companies. So that's what we do. A little bit more in detail. Okay, this one. So this is a financing, but the first part, which is technical cooperation. And after that, I'll talk about the reimbursable instruments. Basically, we have technical cooperation, equity, and loan. So we have all of them. The first one, as I told you, is the smallest project, smallest instrument we have, up to 150K and up to 18 months, the project period. Let's try to complete the prototype and prove if it works technically or not, without thinking too much about scalability or business model. That's the prototype. And the next one that we call Spark, which is more of a seed funding phase, is okay, now they have the prototype, but they need to establish the market. They need to send the model to the market. And now we are testing or introducing new instrument, which is a contingent recovery technical cooperation. What does it mean? So we give you the money, but if the business goes well and hits some target in terms of revenue, in terms of gross margin, whatever we agree, you will have to return the money. But if you fail, it's okay. So why we do that? We are public institutions, right? Our money, our resources are coming from the taxpayers' money. So donate the money to the NGOs may make some sense, but donate the money to for-profit startup companies may make some noise. It's a bit difficult for us to justify. So, but at the same time, we believe that these days we need to work more and more with innovative solutions and innovative startups. So that's the reason we invented somehow this contingent recovery instrument. That's what we're doing. And again, we work with the ecosystem building as well. We also have direct equity. when the model is already established and we see great growth impact together with great impact potential, which is very important because we are not simply supporting the companies which have potential to be unicorns. We want to see the impact, right? That's why we are. So if we see both, we may do direct equity investment. We also work with venture capital funds. And actually, venture capital is today is an industry that is quite established in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. But 20 years ago, there are very few venture capitals that were working in the region, and we supported many of the venture capitals so that the creation, establishment of the industry will be accelerated. And we still are working with venture capitals, always when we see fit of their mandate to the impact side. And we sometimes do loans as well. So again, this coverage, we believe that is one of our unique characteristics or strengths. And again, we do direct financing, direct equity, and indirect investment. IDB Lab has invested in more than 57 active funds across the region, which is quite a big number for the region. And I think we could say that we supported the creation of the industry in the region. And through them, we are investing in more than 700 startup companies. So that's what one of the focuses we have. And this focus to the innovation and startups is kind of unique to us, and that IDB Lab has, or IDB Group has. And another thing I wanted to mention is, okay, so how we can identify, look for those interesting players. Traditionally, all of the colleagues have our own personal networks and knowledges, and they found the interesting partners by their own. But nowadays, since the challenges are changing very, very quickly, and the solution, the offer is also changing very quickly. So personal connections has some limitations. That's why we are doing more and more of these innovation challenges, open innovation. So here we have the challenges. Who have the solutions? Raise your hand. One of the typical challenges we did was COVID-19. So COVID-19, when it happened, was completely new. And we wanted to do something. We thought that we needed to do something. So we organized this challenge. Who has solutions to do something for this situation? And this we did it very quickly. In two weeks, we organized this challenge, and in a month we got more than 500 applications, and we chose 20 interesting solutions that are under implementation, and maybe some of them are finishing right now. So that's one of the things. And maybe focusing on the Caribbean, we did one about tourism. Likewise, this one is also interesting. Better Together challenge we did with USAID about immigration coming from the Venezuela, which is also quite.
So just a quick question, like for these types of projects, the open innovation, the projects that are chosen, do they receive the same access to funding like you showed in that earlier graphic of like kind of swirl?
Thank you very much. Depends on the challenges, but in general, when we look for these more innovative ideas, the applicants tend to be the earlier phase, tend to be in the earlier phase. So in general, we apply more this one or this one. But we are ready to apply the VC funds or direct equity if there's any good case. But in general, we tend to apply this case. Having said that, we didn't put here, I didn't put here, but there's an open channel for direct equity as well. So basically, any company who has an idea and who wants the funding from us at direct equity, they can apply for through that channel as well. Thank you for the question. And another thing I wanted to share is IDB Lab, one of the roles that we see is to work with the newest demands, newest challenges. So in the 90s, when we had another name, the MIF, we worked a lot with the topic of remittances, microfinance. Microfinance today is like something everybody knows and everybody knows what it is. But in the 90s, it was not. And it was before the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh got the Nobel Prize. We worked a lot with microfinance institutions in the region, which were not yet microfinance institutions because there were no legal structures, legal frameworks to support those institutions. But we taking the risk, we work with those microfinance institutions, and nowadays, actually, Latin America and the Caribbean is one of the regions where we have most advanced microfinance systems in the world. So that's one thing. Venture capital also, as I said, one of the things we worked a lot. Coming to the recent years, several years ago, today as well, we worked hard to see how we can make the most of blockchain. Some good cases, some failures as well, but we tried. We keep trying. Artificial intelligence now it's in everywhere, but we are trying to see how to make the most of artificial intelligence. Also, how to better manage artificial intelligence in terms of ethics, in terms of equality and these things. And one of the latest topics that actually I'm one of the promoters is silver economy, the aging. I try to share a little bit more about this topic later, but aging is still new to the region. Latin America and the Caribbean is relatively young compared to other regions, but we know that the aging is coming very rapidly to the region, and we need to do something. That's what we are proposing and we've been doing in the last couple of years. So this looking for the newest challenges is one of the important roles that IDB Lab has. And I skipped this one. Just very quickly, as I told you, we know that our direct interventions will be limited. So how to leverage the resources and the capacity of the partner and how to expand the network of the partners is quite an important challenge for us. And we do promote partnerships, not only in the region. For example, this math is from Singapore. We work quite a lot with Spain as well. And some platforms to connect those partners. This changed actually about the blockchain. If you are interested, it's interesting for you. It's interesting for you to check the website. Fair Lab is about AI, how to promote the fair use of the AI, as I mentioned, this kind of thing. And we do many publications as well. Okay. I will go into the examples of projects so that you can have better ideas. This READx is one of the venture capital that we are supporting, and they have like the newest topics in their investees, health, agriculture, food, very techie venture businesses, but always they are looking for the impact. That's why we are investing in this venture capital. Another one is Elenas, which has operation in Mexico and Colombia. They are focusing on supporting a business led by women. So our mandate is the mandate of the IDB is improve the lives of the region. And lives of whom? Lives of the vulnerable population. And vulnerable population includes economically vulnerable population. Women in many cases still are not equally treated, do not have like equal opportunities. So we keep supporting women in some contexts, youth, and people with disabilities, and Afro-American descendants in the region, or indigenous people, or LGBTQ issues. These vulnerable populations are the ones we want to support. And this one focuses on the women entrepreneurs, and that's why we are supporting. Another one very easy to understand solution is this one about aquaculture. Mitron is a Japanese startup actually, and this is Titicaca Lake, the Peruvian site. What they do, what you see here is a machine that is connected to the camera and thermometer and these things. And basically what it does is to tell us when the fish, the trout in this case, is hungry. And if you feed without knowing that, you might be feeding too much, and you may be spending too much, or you may be polluting the lake or the sea. But if you know the best moment and the best amount to feed, you may be saving some money, and also you may be reducing the negative impact for the lake. So that's what we are trying here. And one issue is, okay, most likely this technology will work because it's working already in Japan or some Asian countries. So maybe some adjustment will be necessary, but it's going to work. The challenge is we want this technology to contribute to the life of vulnerable population. So small or medium-sized aquaculture producers. This machine, as you can imagine, is not cheap, right? And if I'm not wrong, it's around $7,000 or something like that. So no small size producer can buy this machine. So what we can do, after we prove that this technology works and they make necessary adjustments, in the project, they will think about the business model. They may try to reduce the price. But in addition to that, they will think about some leasing or rental or value chain financing, which is they will sell the fish to some fish product producer, right? And maybe if the product like upper side players see the value of this solution to get better products or get cheaper products, they may finance the producers in mid-term or long-term. Am I making myself understand more or less? Okay. So this kind of business model should come together to this project. And if you remember that cycle, the first part of prototype is only about see if the technology works. But after that, we have to see the business model, how to make it scalable, etc. as well. Okay. So let me share about silver economy initiative that I'm one of the promoters. And I wanted to share this initiative, not only because I'm promoting this, but also because this is one of the examples where we see clear intersections between these innovative solutions with what the public sector does. So if you think about the aging, what comes to your mind first? Maybe this kind of image, people get sick, people lose like physical strength, and some, I don't know, sad, negative images. And that's the hard truth. And as I told before, the region of Latin America and the Caribbean is still relatively young, but the aging is coming very rapidly. And as you may know, the demographic projection is one of the most precise projections that exist in the world. So it's going to happen. Maybe some adjustment will be there, but it's going to happen. And this one study shows that currently the spending on pension or health services is about 35% of the public spending, and it's going to be 80% in 2065. It's not sustainable at all. So we have to start doing something. And another message we are sending is the aging is coming rapidly and more rapidly than any other region has experienced. So let's start now. That's we are sending a message. And actually, it's not that IDB has just started thinking about this issue. They had several initiatives with public sector. There's a website that summarizes the initiatives on aging and long-term care. And there's some initiatives on pension or sorry, it's in Spanish, ahorro, saving to improve the life of the elderly people. But those are the initiatives of the public sector thinking about the hard, difficult side of the aging. And those challenges will be there, but nowadays the aging is changing very rapidly. We will have better life in terms of our health compared to 20 years ago or 50 years ago. We have 5 or 10 more years with a good health, and you may be able to travel more or exercise more or enjoy the life more, right? And we wanted to focus on those sides as well. And thinking about those two sides, we wanted to promote the region to think about the issue. And we published this first publication. There's English version as well. The pictures are in Spanish, but their English versions as well, concept paper in 2 years ago, and some initial mapping of actors in last year. So these are the works we are doing. And currently we have, after 3 years, after we launched this initiative, we have more than 10 projects in the region. This one is in Uruguay. We talked about the creation or promotion of entrepreneurial ecosystem, but focusing on the aging, we are doing one project in Uruguay, partnering with Endeavor. I don't know if you know Endeavor. Endeavor is one of the most recognized accelerators, company builders in the world, and we are working with Endeavor in Uruguay to promote that entrepreneurs look at this new market and new challenges, because those challenges mean good opportunities of business for many entrepreneurs as well. So that's one thing. And this has been launched 1 year ago, more or less, and now the innovation agency of the Uruguay government is establishing an initiative to support entrepreneurs that think about the aging. So there's some link with the public sector. Sometimes we let the new creation of the new market or change of the market concept, and public side will follow those changes. That's one of the things we see. And another thing is we see reskilling, upskilling is an important topic for elderly people, especially thinking about the digital divide or technology issues. Many elderly people may be obsolete in the labor market if they don't change, they don't update their skills. So we have two projects, one in Peru and one in Argentina, to create courses, contents exclusively designed for this generation so that they can update their skills. And one interesting thing about this Argentinian project is that in this project, in addition to the AIDOS, which is a local NGO who is our direct partner, some tech giants like Salesforce, Accenture, Microsoft, IBM, Google, they are joining the project because they know that the demographic changes are happening, and they are suffering the scarcity of the digital talent. So if we convert this generation to the good supply pool of the digital talents, they'll be happy as well. So we are working with those large corporations as well. And again, this project is being considered from several governments to somehow deploy in their policies. AnaCare. So this is about long-term care. In this country, there are so many platforms of long-term care where you can find caregivers, like matching platform. And there are some unicorns as well, if I'm not wrong. But in the region, there are not many good systems for you to find good caregivers, or if you are caregivers, for you to find good businesses, good opportunities. And also, there are not good systems of certification or training. So this AnaCare, which is a Mexican startup, is creating this training system and service platform, matching platform. And they are just starting this initiative, and we are applying the second instrument we call SPAR for this. But I wanted to share this in this project because first, the government of Mexico City is interested in deploying this solution, and they just agreed in doing some kind of pilot. So some solutions that startups can offer may be good solution for the challenges of the public sector as well. And now the government of Uruguay also is talking with Anakea if they can deploy. And when we design this project, we work closely with IDB public sector side so that we can reflect well the challenges, and we may facilitate later the connection with the public sector as well. So these are the things where you can see the connection between the public sector side, policy making side, and the solutions coming from the entrepreneurs or startups. This one is from Brazil, and cataracts. I hope I'm saying bien well. In developed countries, very few people lose sight with cataracts these days. But in developing countries, like some part of Latin America or Africa, South Asia, still around 50% of the people who lose the sight because of cataract, which can be detected quite easily and treated quite easily. But if you don't have access to good health services or good hospitals, you will leave it until you lose the sight. So today, until recently, in order to detect these things and treat well these things, you have to go to good large hospitals where they have good machines. But some startups are having these solutions, which are a kind of attachment, small attachment to iPhone or Samsung, whatever. And you, I don't know, after 10 minutes of training, you can be a worker to take the picture of the eyes of the potential patients, and this image will be sent to the data center. Artificial intelligence analyze the data, and if they have a lot, you'll be sent to the next level, and actually some doctors will check the data, and if you have a problem, you'll be called to the hospital or something like that. So with this, we can scale up drastically the diagnosis of cataract. So this is another thing we are doing. And again, as you can imagine, public sector is quite interested in this solution as well. So these are the things we are doing. I think I'm finishing my presentation. I know I've been rushing, so I hope you could grasp more or less what we are doing, and I hope it was interesting to you, this solution. So I stop here. Thank you very much, and open to any comments or questions.
Great. And before we enter the Q&A, there's going to be a moderated conversation between the two of us. Yeah. And one of the things that when we see the examples that you described here, is that IDB through IDB Lab is providing direct assistance to startups and to vehicles like funds that invest in startups, right? Instead of operating through governments. What are the benefits of working directly on the field? And what are the challenges? Because I imagine that the government might see this kind of approach as competitive. to what they are doing. There might be conflicts of interest. So even though we would expect some synergies, but quite often like it can backfire. And so just wondering like how, based on your experience.
Great question, Sydney. The benefits, again, today the innovative solutions are coming from startups, sometimes from large corporations as well, but the government, I would say maybe I'm taking too much risk, but governments are not the creator of the solutions, like innovative techie solutions. They may create like solutions that are schemes or that are policies, but the technical solutions are not coming from the government. So we believe that we need to work with those actors directly. So that's the benefit side. And the challenges, I think there are many challenges, but one of the challenges, the key challenges is the balance between profit and the impact, because many startups think about becoming unicorns or earning money, and there are some startups that have more and more focus on the impact side, but we want to see both. That balance is always a big question for us, and when you analyze each company, this guy is really thinking about the impact or not. It's never easy for us to analyze. So that balance, I would say, is one of the key challenges.
Very good. And do you see in all these examples with governments as partners, or to what extent they get involved in the implementation of some of those programs?
Definitely partners, and in other words, we need to involve them, because at the end, the challenge is a little bit related to the previous question. The challenge is to bring the benefit of those solutions to the most vulnerable population, right? And sometimes to bring those benefits to the most vulnerable population is not profitable, right? So if you only work with the capitalistic mind, you may leave like the most vulnerable population or most rural areas behind. But that part may be covered by public sector, for example. So in order to make sure that we are working for the impact, we definitely should work with the public sector as well.
Absolutely. And talking about impact, one thing is to create intervention through a pilot project and you validate that solution. The other thing is to do it on a mass scale. Right? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in scaling some of those ideas that look so good when you test them, but of course, like disseminating that solution is a different story.
Yeah, that's actually a question which is too good because that story that I mentioned, which is to scale up this solution. To say it's easy, but to do is really, really difficult. And also, to do is to realize those scaling up is difficult, but also to track those scale up phase is difficult. But we somehow need to do that because that's our story, right? But that's one of our challenges. Having said that, basically there are two stories of scale up. One is through the public sector. So this solution of long-term care can be scaled up from the Mexican government, actually Mexico City in this case, or a government from Uruguay, and we can have massive scale. And other side is like the pure business. And if you have the profitable business model that works even with the vulnerable population, it can be scaled up. And this AnaCare, for example, has a potential to do that. And most likely you many of you know about the business model of M-Pesa of Africa, right? And that has a like dream business model that can work for the most vulnerable population, and it was profitable. And there are not so many of those ideal models, but that's the dream we are looking for every day, and some of them can be like M-Pesa. That's how we believe.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with M-Pesa, right, you can make digital payments using your feature phones, pretty much like transferring credits without the need for an iPhone. And last question for you, Masato, is that what's different in Latin America? Is there something that you've seen that got your attention that you haven't seen across all over the world, and something that an intervention that you believe could be used elsewhere?
That's another great question. I'll not be talking about the cultural issues, football again, soccer. I mean, no. But one thing is, when we talk about this kind of innovative solutions for development, Latin America and the Caribbean is in a good position, I would say, because this region has certain level of infrastructure, certain level of stability. I know we can discuss it, but certain level stability, economic and political. So in order to try those innovative solutions that have potential to be the sustainable and scalable business and leaving the impact, Latin America and the Caribbean is in a very good position compared to other developing regions. That's one of the things I would say.
Very good. So now we're concluding the first part of our class. Just want to thank our audience online who has joined our sessions throughout the semester. We'll be back in January for the next for the spring term. And Anna, thanks so much once again for supporting us in this course.
Yeah, no problem.
We can stop the transmission.